Hey everybody, Matt McQueenie, Mixed Minus Podcast. Sunday, February 11th. February. It's one of those words that we can't say, or I can't say, maybe you can. February. But when you say it in a sentence, it gets messed up. Sunday, February 11th. Okay, better. There might only be a couple more opportunities that I can mangle that the rest of this month. It is a short month, right? It's the 28 days of February, unless it is a leap year, in the case where we have the 29th, but I don't believe that is this year. So I have been a single parent this weekend, and I don't know how you single parents do it. What a struggle. Very rewarding, great. I have the aspects of my own personal life that I can really enjoy, but man, it's tough. My wife, Melanie, went to chaperone a trip to Boston, to the Boston area, Berkeley Music Festival, I believe. And she's been gone since Friday. So she was gone Friday night in terms of when I'm home, right? Because I got home at my end of my workday on Friday. So she was gone Friday night, all day Saturday, and then a lot of today, Sunday. She'll be getting home probably within the hour. So I thought I'd get a quick podcast in, but it's really tough. It's tough to hang with a 3-year-old by yourself. You have to be the party planning committee. You have to always have something to do. And so by the time I got home on Friday, it was after 7 p.m. So I let the nanny, babysitter, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it's too hoity-toity to say nanny, even though that's the okay term to use. I guess it would be hoity-toity to say au pair. But our nanny, who watches our son on Wednesdays and Fridays, she was there. So I got home, let her go. And then I really had about 15 to 20 minutes with Liam until it was our bedtime routine. Got him through that and got him to bed. And then I was locked in for the night. And I'm okay with that. I just went through, pretty much watched a lot of sports. I watched a lot of NBA basketball. Nothing else really. I should be watching some Oscar stuff, but I was kind of tired. Watched some NBA basketball. I had gotten some Chipotle on the way home, so I could enjoy that after the little man went to bed. And I secretly, was it the day before or this day? On the way, so the day before when I was driving home, because I had went to my Tim Castano, a good friend of the podcast and a good friend of mine. His mother passed away. She was in her 80s. And so I went to the wake there, which was 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Got there around 5 and then drove the way home on Thursday. And I stopped at the Bottle King just to get some libations for the weekend. I knew I'd be in at night and just to have something on hand. And so I picked up an Avery Maharaja, which is a very highly ranked IPA. I had gotten it several years ago in one of those big, like 25-ounce bottles, right? So the double, basically a double bottle in many ways. So I remember I had that. It's a 10% IPA, very highly ranked. But if you get that double bottle, you're going to be asleep before you finish it. It knocks you out. It knocks you cold. So I got that. It was in cans in a 4-pack. You know that an IPA is high level when they come in 4-packs and they're still like $12. They are strong. But you have to assume a 10% alcohol content, ABV, is the equivalent of 2.5 Bud Lights, basically. Bud Lights can be 4.2. So you go 4.2 times 2 would be 8.4. And then, it's a little over that. But if you're thinking like a normal 4% light beer, that's 2.5 of those. So when you get that in a 12-ounce can, it does a lot of damage. So I got those, and then I got some Alpine something or other IPA. I always like to try to find new ones. I've drank most of the great IPAs that I could get my hands on, starting, of course, with Heady Topper out of Northern Vermont, of course. And so that's a great one. But I always like to try to find them. But over the years, I've gotten many of the great IPAs. And so if I see one I don't know and I look it up, it usually is not highly ranked, maybe in the 80s. I like to pretty much go with my gut call, go with something new when it's over 90%. Or 90 out of 100 or whatever. Beer Advocate, which is a really good website for this, has gone to like an out of 5 ranking now. I liked the 100 ranking, but Rate Beer still does the 100. So Rate Beer and Beer Advocate are the two I really like to look at. So I got this Alpine one, and I got that, brought it home, and then I ended up on Friday night, had one of the Avery Maharajas, and that did really well. I liked it, and then just had a couple glasses of wine with my Chipotle as I went through these games. I was really into the NBA on Friday night, so that was good. But I was tired, so I actually went up kind of early. You're a little worried when you're the single parent for the weekend, where when you have two on hand, two parents, you can kind of adjust overnight if the kid wakes up in the middle of the night. And so I just hope that he doesn't, because I am somebody who sleeps through everything. I sleep through everything. So I only really get up if he gets up at night, if he's so loud, or if my wife gets me up, because she gets very anxious. She's a very light sleeper. She can hear all that stuff. So I did that, but he did really well. He slept Friday night right up until I got up about 7, I think. And then he slept today. I hope he slept today, because I got up at 7:15. No worse for the wear. Just hoping he slept through, but he wasn't bothered. By the time I went to see him, he looked like he was in the early steps of waking up. But yeah, it's tough because you feel like you have so much on you. You have so much kind of pressure on you to make sure that everything goes okay. So once he's down for the night, you can get a lot done. You could do a lot of things. You're actually a single person. I know, it's funny. There was something from Sex and the City that I always liked this idea. My wife doesn't like it so much because she feels like it means that you don't want to be with the person all the time. But I think it was the Sex and the City movie, maybe the second movie. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was even in one of the normal seasons. But I feel like it was the movie. And the Sarah Jessica Parker character and the Chris Noth Mr. Big character are, of course, in this long on and again, off again relationship. And of course, you have to be in a situation where you're very rich and you can afford multiple places to lay your head at night. But they pretty much had this deal where it was like 5 on, 2 off. And I think this would be magical for life and for marriage and for relationships if we could all just be okay with this. I would rather have my 7 days of being with my family all the time, my wife all the time. It gets tougher when you have kids with this idea. But what it was is that for 5 days you're together. And then for 2 days, you go back to your own apartments and you're on your own for 2 days. And you really don't bother each other. Maybe you text, you keep up a little bit, but you pretty much don't bother each other. So that when you come back with each other at the start of the 5-day run, you're refreshed, you're happy, your relationship is fresh. You have a lot to talk about from those 2 days you were off. You're not out swinging, doing things like that, but everything is kind of fresh. It's not like you're there day after day after day after day, kind of losing the special aspects of relationship. This would never work with kids, really, because what happens on those 2 days with the kids, it's like, does the one parent have to take the kid for their 2 days, the other the next 2 days? It becomes untenable in that position. And then when you add more than one kid, it becomes even more. But I always thought that was kind of an interesting thing if you were in a relationship with just 2 people. Although once you have kids, you look back at the normal just 2-person relationship and you think, boy, I had so much time, I could have been doing stuff anyway. Who needs those full 2 days? And maybe that's what you would do. Maybe you just really need to go back to a time and just tell your single or your just normal cohabitation marriage self, dude, do everything you can do. Do everything. Like I always used to say, I would get up at 7. My wife would leave at 7 for school, and then I wouldn't leave to go to work till 9. So for 2 hours, I'm just in my house, like I'm off. But I didn't know that that was off. I didn't come to appreciate what that feeling was until my mornings are at the beck and call of a toddler, which I love too. But I'm just saying, sometimes it's nice to have some time, but you don't appreciate that time until it's gone, as with most things. So we did real well this weekend. And the only hard part was on Saturday. So on Saturday, we got a pretty full schedule, pretty full slot of activities that are already in place. We have swimming at 9:30, which is about 20 minutes away. Then he had a haircut at noon. He usually naps, if he's going to nap, between 1 and 4. Not always, but that's sort of the time block that he could nap in. So I had the swimming. We ended up going to Cloveberry, my favorite coffee place, before swimming so we could get breakfast. There was another of his classmates, actually, from the Montessori school who was there with his dad. So we teamed up and we had a little bit of a father-son dual breakfast going on there. Left there, went to swimming. I like swimming because he's now with a teacher. So I can sit in the little glass room and just read. So I get a nice half hour of reading. It's almost like someone's watching your kid for that half hour. You do have to make sure as they're going by, floating, doing their activities with their goggles, that when they're looking into that glass room, you're looking at them, because it's like the air comes out of them when they see that you're just staring at a magazine when they're doing these quote unquote great things in the pool. So that ended up, got him dressed. It's always hard doing this as a single parent. Again, how single parents do this, I give you so much credit. It's unbelievable. But you're getting, it's cold out, so you have to figure out, am I going to put him in his swim stuff? Do I have to put his clothes over him? Can we get the car in the garage so we can really sneak him into the car? You're doing things to be convenient for yourself, really. And you really should be looking out for the kid, which you do, but you got to balance it all. There's a calculus to it all. So we get there, and then he's done, and you got to get to him with the towel immediately when he was coming out of the steps, because they sort of abandon the kids at the top of the steps, like to prove to the parents, keep your eyes on it, stop reading your magazines. And so I got him, get him toweled up. We go into the bathroom, and then, man, getting wet clothes off of a toddler is really difficult. And I get to the point, you're on your own, I pull off the clothes, and all of a sudden I look around and he's headed naked trying to get out the bathroom. And I'm like, oh my God, get over here. And what would happen if he went out there in front of everyone? I don't even know, but I got to stop it because it can't happen. No other kids do it. No other parents get caught in that situation. So I had to get him back. And you're trying to put clothes back on a wet kid who's angry, who's squirmy. You're deciding, do I have to take him to the potty? And then what potty will we use? And then you have to say, oh, maybe you'll use a urinal, because a urinal feels special, because they get control over potty to the point where they want to just say no. They just don't want to do the potty, even though they need to go, but they want to have some control over you in a decision. So they say, no, I'm not going to use the potty. And you're like, come on, man. And you're sitting there negotiating with a kid about using a potty. So sometimes they'll say, oh, let's use a urinal. Oh, so you're almost doing a sales job. You're trying to build up some option to get done what you need done. And so he'll go, oh yeah, let's do a urinal. And so I'm doing this weird thing where his pants are down around his feet, and you're like picking him up to the urinal because it's an adult size urinal, and you're kind of leaning him over so that he can hit into the urinal. And then you're pretty much carrying him up like you're lifting weights. It's out of control. And then don't even get me started on the washing hands aspect, which you have to do, but becomes it just becomes a disaster with a kid. Because first of all, if they don't have like little step stools, which you end up getting in your house for these kinds of things, but you have to pick him up over the sink. You have to hope that he's not getting water all over the place. They always have these long sleeves now in the cold weather, so you have to pull them back, make sure he gets soap. He likes to get the soap in his hand and then just go pow, slap his hands together, get soap everywhere. Then you got to wash it off. You got to dry it off. Having a kid is nuts. All these little things you don't even think about that are just autonomic in your life, they become jobs, tasks when you have a child. But anyway, we got that done. And all I got to do is get to that nap time. I get to that nap time and I get my couple hours of free time. I'm on my own. There's a couple of periods with my wife gone where I can be on my own, nap time and nighttime. And so we get ourselves back. We try to watch a couple of Daniel Tiger episodes. Then we got to rally back up and get out to the haircut. Bring him to the haircut. We're kind of in our bachelor Sunday best, our Saturday best. We're in like warm up pants. And then you walk into these nice salons where all these women are getting stuff where the women almost get made up in order to go get their hair done. And so we're in there and we're kind of rolling around, and it's kind of like the vibe there is, let's get these ne'er-do-wells in and out of here as quick as possible. We can't have the Saturday, this guy's coaching his son's team look, and the kid is obviously away from his mom because he's not really dressed to the nines. But we get the haircut. Luckily with a toddler, that can be very quick. Not a ton of hair, even with a big-headed toddler. We get out of there. We get home. One of the little secrets when you're on your own, we went to that Cloveberry place in the morning. I make sure to get something for lunch from there so that we have lunch set. He sort of eats his lunch. I'm sort of negotiate to the nap. That's always the hardest thing. And now that he's potty trained, negotiating to the nap is usually, he's got to go number 2. Because if he doesn't go number 2 on the potty, he's going to go in his diaper. And if he goes in his diaper, he's not going to nap. So that becomes a whole thing. You try to get him down on the seat, And then he'll go, I'm all done. And he just pops back up. And the funny part is they have these little toddler toilets. And so he figures I'm going to be a big helper. So after I go pee in that little toilet, I'm going to pick it up and dump it in the potty. Well, they don't really know how to do that very tactfully. So he ends up picking it up and pouring pee all over the floor. So that's a whole nother situation. But he gets up out of a chute. He's not going number 2. So then what happens? You inevitably put him in bed. You have to negotiate that. You have to say, we're going to do this after this. We're going to do this after this. And the other thing was I was going out that evening. Melanie's mother and her aunt and her grandmother were going to take us out to eat. Just another thing to kind of get you through the day, right? So we're going to eat at 5 o'clock at a great place the next town over called Salt. And so I'm telling them throughout the day, oh, we're going to be going out to dinner. We're going out to dinner. And then what happens is from the jump, he wakes up in the morning. Every time he goes, let's go to dinner now. And I go, no, we can't go to dinner now. And he melts down, has a temper tantrum every single time I tell him we're not going to dinner now. No matter what I say, oh, because it's not open, we have to wait, or, Baba and AJ and Gigi, which is what he calls them, are not going to be ready in time. Didn't matter. He melted down every single time we didn't say we were going now. So I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have brought that up. It's a whole negotiating game with these little kids. It's unreal. And they know your weak spots and they exploit them intensely. So we get him up there, put him down for his nap. You get him in the bed and you have to say, I love you, sleep well. And then I have to say, for the last time, I'm going to say it one more time, I love you, sleep well. He goes, okay. But then he's sort of doing a lot of stuff in bed there. And you don't want to watch the Nest Cam at this point because there's going to be things you don't really want to see. You don't want to see him trying to put his leg over the crib to try to get out, or jumping into the back of the crib, slamming himself into it. You just kind of want to pretend like you're not seeing it. Sort of like the animals in the attic. You're not going to open it up and look. You're not going to shine light on it. You're just going to let it be. You hear the footprints, but you know that they're not going to make it in the house. Let them do what they're doing up there and leave. Let them get the traps and let them get the poisonous food and apparently die way out in the land because they're so thirsty and they can't satiate that thirst. Whatever goes on there, just let it happen. And so that happens. 5-10 minutes in, every time he goes, Daddy, I got to go poop. He knows the couple of things he can say that will get you to come out and talk, because otherwise you're just letting him yell into the ether. And so this is one of those, because if he says that, he usually has to go. Both days in a row, I go and get him. He goes on the potty. And then I say, okay, we're going to clean you up. We're going to get you back to sleep. So I put him back in his bed yesterday and it was not happening. So by 2 o'clock, he was screaming so much, it just wasn't going to work out. And you never know where that threshold is when it's too much. But it had reached that point. I just figured this isn't going to work out. Let's get him up. And I was annoyed because I was looking forward to my nap time, for his nap time to work out. I wanted to get downstairs and I wanted to get some weightlifting done, get about 3 to 4 miles of running in on the treadmill. And so not only that, but now I'm annoyed that I had to get him up. I'm unshowered still because I want to wait to shower till after I've worked out. Everything's kind of funky. I hadn't eaten and I was going to get basically a bowl of cereal just to tide me over for that workout, because we'd then be eating that early dinner with Baba, AJ, and Gigi. And so I'm annoyed, and I'm selfishly annoyed. And so what I do is I say, all right, I'm going to get you, but you're going to come down to the basement and you're going to sit down and I'm going to put a TV show on for you and Daddy's going to work out because the gym is down in the basement. And that worked. I got my little bowl of cereal still. We went down there and I sort of lifted weights and played with him a little. And then the minute I was going to do cardio, I turned on to Daniel Tiger. He was entranced. He pretty much stayed at a little table on his chair. Maybe he was a little too close to the TV, but no one's saying that. And I got my nice workout in. That was key. And so then I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a mess. We have to go to that dinner at 5 o'clock, which is going to be about 25 minutes away from us. Great place, Salt. Love it. Gastropub to the nines. Really good place. But then he's now not napped. So it means he's going to have to go to bed. He's going to have to go to bed earlier, sometimes an hour to an hour and a half earlier than usual on a non-nap day. There's all of these considerations you have to take in the calculus of a toddler. But I was like, who knows how long we're going to be out. Melanie had also set me up to pick up the groceries. She didn't make me go in and pick them up, but it was one of those shop from home things. And that's right across the street from Salt. So, I'm not going to say it's all bad or begrudge her for that. It ended up being okay, but I said, I'm not going to be able to do this. So I said, Liam, let's shower together. I know it sounds creepy. It wasn't, but I had to shower after it. So I said, let's shower together. We'll knock out two birds with one stone. On a swimming day, he absolutely has to bathe. And so I made it a whole thing. He was excited. I didn't give him his toddler like shampoo or body wash. He used all my stuff. Who knows if he's going to get weird like skin irritations, but knocked that out. And then I decided we got out of the shower and I called Baba, Melanie's mom, the name he uses for her, his grandmother, Baba. And I said, are you guys all up visiting already? And she said, yeah. So I said, all right, we're coming over. So an hour earlier, we popped over there. At least I had a group to kind of spread out the wealth of the unslept toddler, which I remarked to Gigi and AJ is like an adult on a cocaine binger or bender. It really is similar. They are shot out of a cannon. They're like deer in the headlights, big eyes, and they get crazy. So we did that. We went to Salt, nice dinner, and then we ended up picking up our groceries. We got home, and you got to sort of ease them into the night. You can't just get home and go, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, go upstairs. You got to kind of ease them in. So we did that. We watched a little something. We read a lot of books, put them down. Ended up being late after 8 o'clock, which is almost normal bedtime, but he was out like a light right away. He was knocked out for the count. So I decided in my Oscar movie watching, I was going to watch The Florida Project. I've not been that interested in The Florida Project, just looking at it, seeing the pictures from the movie, kind of getting a feel of what it's about. It hasn't gotten a ton of buzz. It didn't get into the Best Picture. Really, I think the only thing it has running for it is Willem Dafoe for Best Supporting Actor. And so when that happens, you sort of lose your enthusiasm for seeing the movie. But it's a movie. I try to knock out all the movies before I get to the documentaries if I can. I think our Oscar podcast is going to be next week, so I have a lot of work to do. I have about 7 or 8 things to potentially watch. I probably won't get all the way through before that podcast, but The Florida Project was one of them. And I'll tell you what it is first of all, I had to rent the movie. It was available. I told you I have these pirated sites and I try to watch as many movies as I can. But if I do see one come available and it's rentable, I don't want to buy them because what a stupid thing to buy a digital movie. Like, I have it on my digital bookshelf or something. No, I don't want to buy it. That's a bizarre thing to pay $15 to own a digital thing that in 5 years Apple could just decide, nah, we're pulling it. Like, you don't own it. You don't own it. So I'd rather rent it. And so I was going to rent it and I looked it up. It was available for rental and it's about $5.99 for the HD, $4.99 for the SD, but sometimes you really got to shop around. And so one of the things I did, I went over to the Google Play store, which is Google's version of iTunes or their version of the paid version where you can rent things from Amazon. And I had a credit in there for some reason. So I ended up getting the movie rental for $1 or so, $1.20 maybe with tax. And so that was kind of neat. I was able to get the HD version, which I usually always get the SD version because who really notices the huge differences? It's just not worth the extra $1 mostly, especially when I'm watching pirated stuff that's probably like the SD of the SD, like it's barely definition. It's like blurry, weird. There's some funny things you see on pirated movies too. Like when I saw The Shape of Water, it seemed like it had its own funny kind of subtitles where it was like not what was being said in the movie. It was almost like rap talk. I don't even know what was going on. It was strange. And it was a little bit distracting. I've almost been thinking about going to see The Shape of Water in the theater because of how highly nominated it is and that it looks like the prohibitive favorite for Best Picture. And it's got like tons of nominations up and down the line. So I might have to go see it again because I did not love it. I just didn't love it. But maybe I need to be more engrossed in the experience and watching it. But this Florida Project, I finally sat down to watch it. There was some good NBA stuff on, but I said, you know what? I just got to do this. So I fired up the Roku, and on Roku, it does have the Google Play application on it. So that was cool. You could watch it on the screen. I got the little Roku remote, plugged my Beats headphones in so I could listen to it. And I fired the movie up really with not a lot of enthusiasm for it and not a lot of hopes for it. but I really liked it. I was engrossed by this movie, almost in a reality television kind of way. First of all, the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. It's that tropical thing. And here's what it's about. It's about pretty much people who live on the margins of society, on the margins of the Magic Kingdom outside of Orlando, Disney World. And it's the people who kind of live in these motels all year round. Like, they're very poor. And so they live in these cheap motels that are pink and all this stuff. And they're almost like hotels or motels that tried to cash in on being close to Disney, but never could get there. And so sort of these people who are on the margins of society live there with their families. And as I talked about being a single parent this weekend, it revolves around single parents, and especially a single mother, who is the mother of a very precocious girl named Moni, and her other friends who also live in this motel. And it's sort of through the eyes of the children mostly. And the movie was just engrossing. It was really, really good. Willem Dafoe plays the manager of the motel, and he did a great job showing some humanity in this kind of on the margins world. You see him at times try to step in to help where somebody doesn't have their rent in on time, or where the police come for a Department of Family Services issue, or even there was one part where an obvious pedophile comes on the land and goes near the kids, and Willem Dafoe just gets off a ladder and steps right up to it and is sort of like, "Can I help you, sir?" So he did a real good job. It's possible he could be in the running to win it. He did a great job. But I just really liked this movie. The way it was shot with the tropical Florida on 35 millimeter film. And then they actually use an iPhone for the last kind of guerrilla-ish scene where the girl's trying to run away from this situation that her mom got into, where the police were going to take her and put her into a foster home, the girl. And they sort of run to the Magic Kingdom to bring it all back around, that you're on the outskirts of this magical place. And I always feel that with Florida in general. Like, all the things that are manicured and well kept up, it's obvious that they're like that. But then when you step one, you step one road in the wrong direction, it's more rundown than the most rundown places you've seen in the country. So you really see that the manicured aspects of Florida that we come to see in the brochures are not true Florida. That's not how Florida would really look if it were left to its own devices. It needs to be manicured up to the places that we come to expect as Florida, and the places that we visit and look like resort. It can be a little poverty stricken in many of these places, but I was engrossed in it. I really was. And not a lot happens. It's sort of the everyday of living this existence. And it did a really good job with that. It was, I guess it was the second movie of this director. What's his name? He had a movie called Tangerine. Let's see. The Florida Project. Sean Baker. That's his name. $2 million budget. It's made about $7 million in the box office already. It was a nice movie. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'd highly recommend it. It might not come home with much of an Oscar footprint, or fingerprint, but I really would recommend watching it. I thought it was a really nice movie, and you can get it for cheap, and you can rent it and do all that. So I think that'll be good. Another thing I've been really engaged in is a podcast called Young Charlie. It's a really good series. It seems to be a true crime thing created by Wondery, WONDERY, and it's a 6-part series. It seems like it's an LA-based crime fiction or nonfiction crime kind of show. And it's a very highly edited and narrated walkthrough of Charles Manson, both from the killings, the Sharon Tate murders, and from his upbringing. It's sort of a concurrent storytelling thing between his upbringing and those murders, and his life in LA and how things came to be. It was really fascinating. I would highly recommend it. It gets deep into the 1950s and 60s and into the 70s. And I always I'm always intrigued by that period of time in LA. I'm almost intrigued by any period of time in LA. I always think like I could live in the 50s LA or the 60s LA or the 70s LA or the 80s or the 90s. It seems like when it gets to the 2000s and the 2010s, I'm not as interested, but I'm interested back then. There's something about it being the Shangri-La, being the beautiful place that we all aspire to go to. That's evident, and it always being the place where people are trying new things. They're moving from somewhere else. Very few are from there, and entertainment being the centerpiece of it all. I think it's fascinating, and the series is not that hard to get through. It's like 6 40-minute episodes, I think. Really good, and it got me thinking as I'm listening to this thing, man, how is this not a movie? And I looked it up, and there was some movie, Helter Skelter, from the 70s or something that really didn't seem to get very much acclaim. And I'm like, how is this not the case? And then all of a sudden, like in a weird synchronicity kind of way, I see that it's a trending subject. There is a movie coming out about Charles Manson, the Manson murders, that time in LA. And it's going to be directed by Quentin Tarantino, of all people. And Hilary Duff is going to play Sharon Tate. Very strange. Very interesting. I think Leo DiCaprio might even be involved in it. So that's coming, I think, in 2019, and it'll be released on the August day that the murders happened, the 50th anniversary of that. We're coming up on 50 years. Amazing when you think 50 years ago is the late 70s. Holy moly, how is that the case? But it happens. I feel like it's maybe 40 years, but no, it's almost 50. Time really moves quickly. So that's going to be interesting, but I would highly recommend this Young Charlie series. I just signed up today for a program called MoviePass. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's sort of billed as the Netflix of movies. So you pay, there's been many payment tiers through a period of time. I think at one point it was $20 a month, and it got to $10 a month, and today I just bought it for $7.95 a month. Who knows how long it'll last? So my money could be putting good after bad, but we'll see. But it's a really good premise, and what it does is for this monthly payment. And I had to actually, because mine was so low, I had to pay for the whole year, including an initiation fee. So it ended up being about $115 for the whole year. This MoviePass gives you the ability to watch unlimited movies at movie theaters. And something like 91% of movie theaters participate, including AMC. And when I looked it up, including the little theater in my town, Sparta, and all the other theaters I mostly go to, they partake in it. And so what it does is it gives you the ability to unlimited go to these movies as a single person going to them. Can't get family packages yet, can't get into any of that. But it's really neat, and it has intrigued me a lot. And I almost didn't do it because I was thinking to myself, I mostly go to matinees and I go by myself, and you can do that for like $8. And if I count that out, $8 over the year, if I go even once a month, that ends up being like $96 or something like that. And then I was like, well, even if I go to see one a week during the Oscar period, that's 16 movies, and then maybe there's another 8. I got to the point where it was maybe at the lowest a little more than MoviePass would be, but then I thought, you know what, let's do this. Let's try it, because maybe I'll go see more movies. I might try to go see a movie at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night, or go see a movie like The Florida Project. I probably would not go to the movies to see. I almost go to the movies. In this period of time, I've actually gone to the movies to see The Phantom Thread, The Post, Lady Bird, and what was the other one I went to see? Is it possible that that's it? I went to see one in town here. Yeah, it's very possible that's all I've gone to see at the actual theaters. And I saw over the year, I saw Dunkirk and Get Out at the theaters as well. But movies like Call Me by Your Name, or like I was saying, The Florida Project, those might not be ones where you're like dying to go see it. But if you have something you're paying into already and it's unlimited, all of a sudden you might go to theaters to see those. And there has been a jump in theater going from people with MoviePass, which is a good thing for theaters. And there's actually something where that's helpful to MoviePass, because MoviePass has taken a major hit if people are going even more than once a month, because MoviePass is buying the tickets. Basically, they're subsidizing the tickets after that first time, because you're $8 or $10 a month. pretty much pays for one ticket. So that's where they're even. Anything you get above that, and if you get tons and tons, they're eating all that because they're buying the ticket on your behalf so you can get it. So there's also deals they're working out with the theaters where maybe they get $3 off of every ticket sold through their service, or 20% of concessions sold through their service. I don't know how they can track it all. I guess they can because there is an app. But there are some downsides to it. It's an amazing upside, but the downsides are you can't buy the tickets beforehand and then go. So you're not assured of a spot. So you have to, the way it works is you have to have the app, and then they give you a prepaid, or they give you a MasterCard, I think. It's like a MoviePass MasterCard. And so what you do is you have to be within 100 yards of the theater you're going to, and you pretty much check in for the movie you want to go to, and then magically the amount for that movie is dropped onto your MasterCard. And so you can take that and then go buy the tickets at the door. So it is a little bit of an inconvenience, because what if a movie's sold out? You're now waiting online. You can't walk right through. You can't buy it on the app. But the promise of the technology is a little too good to be true. So I went ahead and got it at the $7.95 fee, and I had to pay that for a year, and I will make it work. I'll go see more movies than I was going to otherwise. I might pull back on the pirated movie stuff, and it makes you feel special. Now, can this survive? Can they subsidize the amount of people coming into the program? There was something like 500,000 people added over the last month. I think there might be 2 to 3 million people in the program. Once they get to a critical mass of number of people in this program who are going more than once a month, do the losses start to become so obscene that they can't even hold it together? But they're obviously trying to get to a point where they have ubiquity. They have enough people in the program that they become so important that the money starts to work out. It's sort of like Spotify, which I was very skeptical of working out because the economics of that never worked, and they were always in the red massively, but they focused on ubiquity and getting as many members as possible and said there's a magic number that we reach where we're in good shape at that point. And it appears that possibly they're getting to that point now. And so for something like MoviePass, you say, well, did they get to the point where they can be a public company, or do they get to the point where they're purchased by a major media conglomerate or a tech conglomerate or big companies who could then subsidize those losses easily because they want that service within a suite of services they have and it makes sense to them. So I'm in right now. I'm on the roller coaster, and I don't know if this roller coaster is going to end. I don't know if I'm going to get a couple months in and then they have to refund me. Or are they going to refund people? Are they going to run away with money? You don't know, but I'm trying it because I think it's a neat technology, and I'd like to see more movies in person. And I think the economics of it will work, even if you go twice a month. And I'll try to go 4 times a month. But if you go 4 times a month, you're probably saving 75%. I mean, you're saving a lot of money on the amount of tickets you could go to otherwise. You do have to get close within 100 yards of the theater to then get into it. So you might not always get to the movie you wanted to go to. You might have to go to another one at that point. But it's sort of like how going to the movies used to be, when used to call that movie phone number, and then they would tell you when the movie was, and then you would just show up and hope you could get in. And if you couldn't, you'd then slide off to another movie. A lot of people prepay their tickets now, pre-buy them through apps. So we'll see. I'm sure that MoviePass, if it survives, will get better and will get more app friendly and pre-buy friendly as they gain critical mass. But we'll kind of see how that works out. But I'm excited. I signed up. I sort of impulse bought. Once it got down to $7.95 a month, it's different when you have to pay for the year. But when it got down to that number, I don't know. I'm excited about it. So maybe I'll see other movies like that. Like I said, Florida Project, I would highly recommend it. It's not like going to knock you over the head or knock your socks off, but it's like a slow enjoyment. It's a slow cook, a slow burn in a nice way. It's a good movie. Phantom Thread was a weird one. It's apparently Daniel Day-Lewis's last movie. It's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. There are people who are Paul Thomas Anderson fanboys. I think he's really good. I must be missing something because I don't think he's like some genius of film. Maybe he is. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know. I watch a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff. His stuff is good. There Will Be Blood was great. That was with Daniel Day-Lewis too. This is a good movie, but it's a weird one. It's like a 1950s would it be a seamstress or seamster, who is a highly sought after London seam person who builds dressmaker, I guess is what you would say. And he builds dresses for queens and major socialites and high society. So he's very sought after in this. And he's got a very domineering sister who he actually treats like a mother/girlfriend figure, a wife figure. And it's a story about how he brings in women to his life to try to have relationships, and then they ultimately become too much for him, and he pretty much turns his back on them until they leave or until his sister gets them out. So it's a weird one. I mean, all I kept thinking in this movie was, man, do I wish Daniel Day-Lewis played Steve Jobs instead of Michael Fassbender. That would have been good. Can you imagine DDL playing Jobs? He would have played the part exactly how it need to, because he would have gotten so into the character, and he would have gotten he's as crazy as Jobs was in many ways, and perfectionist as Jobs was. And I was just thinking that would be something I would have loved to see, and maybe we could still see it, even though Fassbender played it. And Fassbender wasn't bad in any way, but I don't even know if that movie was amazingly well done. And Fassbender was all right, but I didn't buy the kind of impatience that Steve Jobs had for people and things. I didn't buy it in Fassbender enough, and I would have bought it in Daniel Day-Lewis big time. But yeah, it was a worthy movie to see. Phantom Thread was sort of like one of those graduate school types things that you have to see because the actor and the director are what they are. And Leslie Manville was really good as the sister. And it's a period piece. It's fun to go into different periods of time and to see how life is led and what they eat and what they drink and how they live and where they go. I love those kind of steakhouses from those periods of time that we still will go to as a special event these days. But those kind of things they would go to every night, right? Like they would go to a Ben Benson steakhouse, or those high society steakhouses where then you have your martinis and you have your drinks and no one has anywhere to go. No one has any technology to interact with. It's just the people. You go home at night and you knock yourself out. You go to bed, you wake up the next day. I like that kind of stuff. And, so it was a good one. I also saw Call Me By Your Name. I say begrudgingly, but I'm not in any way speaking down on homosexuality in any way. But I think sometimes there's that Brokeback Mountain effect, where as a straight man, you're not dying to see a homosexual love story. You're not dying to see it. No matter how well it's done, no matter how well it's acted, you're just sort of, you just can't relate to it at the levels you need to. But the movie was really well done. I'm not trying to sound sexist or sexualist. I don't know if that's the term. It was good. It was sort of like Moonlight last year. They're good movies. They're coming of age stories, but that's not my coming of age. It's not my cup of tea, and I'm fine with it. I really am fine with it. And when I watch it, I get stuff out of the movie. I enjoy it. That was another one that was based, Call Me By Your Name was based in Italy. So it actually sort of took me back, sort of like an old villa in Italy, right? But this movie was based in the early to mid 80s, maybe 83. And it took me back to my wife and I when we went on our honeymoon. We stayed at a villa for a night in Italy. And I almost thought it was the same villa. And it was a great little coda to our trip. It was really nice to live in that way with no technology and a really old structure and abode. And you have dinner and lunches. And those are the big social, those are almost the organizing social principles. And they're 2-hour, 3-hour meals. Those are fun. Drinks and everything. You fall asleep at the table. And this movie brought me back to that a little bit. And it was a good one. It was really well acted. We'll talk about it on the Oscars stuff. Really well acted. Timothée Chalamet was really good in it. He was also really good in Lady Bird. Armie Hammer was good. How many things is Armie Hammer the voiceover for? Because he has the voice to be the voice for everything. And could Armie Hammer be the modern Don Draper? If they ran back Mad Men in like 10 years, could he be really good at Don Draper? I think he could. Good actor, Winklevoss twins in The Social Network. But it was good. And the father was really good in the movie. He was in like 5 movies this year. He was in The Shape of Water. He was in, let me get his name so I'm not bastardizing him. Shape of Water cast. Let's see. He was in that. He was also in The Post. He was in, where is he here? Full cast and crew. Oh man, these headshots are really these are too small. Let me see if I can find him through the Post. Arthur Sulzenberger, I think, is the person. Let's see. The Post movie. Taking this to a screeching halt, my friends. The Post movie, Sulzberger. Let's see. Let's see if we can find this. I don't know if we're going to find it, but he was in that. He was in The Post. He was in The Shape of Water. He was the father in Call Me by Your Name. He's a really good actor. He was also in Boardwalk Empire. He's a good actor, and he played, his range in all these different movies is really impressive. But he plays a professor, and Armie Hammer is the yearly intern, student intern who comes to be with this professor's family at their home in the Italian countryside. And Timothée Chalamet, who plays this professor's son, kind of strikes up a friendship and then a love affair in a way with Armie Hammer in a period of time where they both know they sort of can't do that, and there's a lot of exploring sexuality, all that kind of stuff. And there's some sad moments at the end. That also has a best song nomination in there. The songs were really good. They were very Sulfy Stevens, I think the name is. Very sad, ethereal type of songs. But yeah, I think that's where we stand with a lot of this stuff. Heard my wife just got home, so we'll go reacquaint with her, get some lunch, and live out the rest of our Sunday night here. Folks, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.